Welcome. Oil markets may look calm, but that calm is misleading. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has removed around 15 million barrels per day of oil supply. Even then, Brent crude is around $93 per barrel, well below its April peak. This is mainly because the governments are using the emergency oil reserves to cushion the shock. So the key point is simple. Prices are calm because the reserves are being used, not because the crisis is over. The missing oil has been replaced in four ways. First, China cuts its import by around 5 million barrels per day. Second, rationing and weaker demand elsewhere reduce oil use by another 5 million barrels per day. Third, countries like Brazil and Venezuela have increased their production slightly. And finally, the remaining gap was filled by drawing down commercial inventories and strategic reserves. So the market adapted by reducing demand, rerouting the supply, and using the stored oil. But it did not fix the main problem. The Hormuz checkpoint is still closed. The International Energy Agency responded with the biggest coordinated reserve release in its history. In March, member countries pledged to release 400 million barrels. Almost half has already been delivered at a very fast pace of around 2.5 to 3 million barrels per day. This helped calm the market during the first 100 days of the war. But now, the fastest phase may be ending. If the reserve releases are slow, oil prices could become much more sensitive to fresh bad news. Japan and America have been two of the biggest contributors. Japan started the war with around 90% of its crude coming from the Middle East, so it released around 90 million barrels. But Japan is now cautious because it does not want to drain its reserves too far. America is also constrained. Its strategic reserves was already near half depleted before the war, and it is now at its lowest level since 1980s. Some US reserves are being lent rather than being sold, and deliveries are expected to slow. So both countries can still help, but their ability to keep supplying emergency oil is weakening. Europe easily cannot fill the gap. Many European countries rely less on the Gulf route, so they were less willing to release the large reserves. Also, Europe's reserves are often refined products, not crude oil. They are stored across commercial tanks, not simple government depots. That makes quick emergency release harder. Experts believe only a limited amount of European oil has actually reached the market. So Europe's reserves cushion is less direct, less liquid, and less battle tested than America or Japan's. The calm may not rest. The calm may not last. Morgan Stanley estimates that emergency reserves flows from IEA members could fall from 2.5 million barrels per day in June to only about 0.7 million barrels per day in July. At the same time, commercial stocks may become too low and summer fuel demand may rise. That means more pressure may fall on China reserves. But China may not want to drain its stock if there is no peace in sight. And when the war ends, countries will need to refill their depleted reserves. That restocking demand could keep the oil prices higher for longer. The final message is simple. Strategic reserves can smooth an oil shock, but they cannot solve a prolonged supply.